Okay, let's start. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Good afternoon. Welcome to this new Strata talk. Today we will be talking about a fascinating topic, why 90% of EIC applications fail. I'm David Arias, founder of Strata and startup advisor, and I'm pleased to have you today on this 30 minutes webinar. So yeah, first disclaimer, the webinar will be recorded. So yeah, if you need or you want, you can disconnect your camera. So what are the Strata Talks? Strata Talks are basically webinars and short talks about innovation, startups, deep tech, and funding. We've been doing these talks for over 2 years, focusing on topics that are interesting for startups and entrepreneurs, technology readiness levels, funding programs, go-to-market strategies, etc., deep tech metrics, etc. All the recordings and slides are available on the website blog.fundingtrip.com. About me, I'm based in Madrid. I'm the founder of Strata. I'm also founder of the portal fundingtrip.com. I have more than 20 years of startup experience, have funded 2 startups, have sold 1, more than 12 years of funding and especially EU funding experience, and more than 100 million euros in non-dilutive funding attractive for startups. And my focus is on helping tech startups get funding, and thanks to funding also go faster. Today's talk is why 90% of EIC applications fail. I think we will be mostly focused on the EIC Accelerator. But the findings that we will be sharing today are also applicable to other EIC programs. So most applicants of the EIC Accelerator underestimate how selective and nuanced the evaluation process really is, and that's exactly why nearly 90% of the proposals fall short. So we are going to address this topic today. Today's session will not be about theory. We are actually translating recurring feedback patterns into concrete actions that I hope you can apply immediately. And our quick agenda for the next half an hour. So first, this welcome. Then Aracelia Tamarit will take over and will present the most common weaknesses. Then I will continue on how to overcome them, some recommendations, personal recommendations on how to overcome these issues. And finally, Martin Stanford will present a little bit about how we work at Strata, and we will also have a few minutes for Q&A. About Strata, for those who don't know the company, we empower tech startups to build effective fundraising and go-to-market strategies. We are certified partners by the European Innovation Council, the EIC, which means that some of our services can be co-funded by the EIC, and we also support the code of conduct elaborated by the EIC. How do we support startups? Basically with innovation funding, so helping startups acquire funding through innovation programs, innovation management, IP strategy, valuation and investor matchmaking, and also services for market entry and growth. And basically these are our main, let's say, capabilities. So we work a lot on fundraising, business models, innovation strategy, and technology transfer, venturing, and internationalization. And as I haven't mentioned it before, but we are usually working with deep tech companies and also a lot in the health vertical and in the clean tech vertical. Our traction, so almost 30 innovation consultants. We have clients of more than 25 countries. We have acquired more than 100 million euro in funding for these startups, and we have obtained successful projects through the most important European organizations, the EIC, Eureka, and also national organizations such as Vinova, Cedeti, Innovate UK, etc. A small reminder, we also host this portal called fundingtrip.com, where you can find calls, news about European grants, insights about investors, and there's also a weekly newsletter. Now I would like to introduce Arcelia Tamarit, Head of Life Sciences and IP Strategy at STRATA, and she will walk us through the most common pitfalls.
Hi, thank you, David. So yeah, just sorry, a little bit about me. Arcelia, I'm a pharmaceutical chemist by training, and over the past few years, I and also we in Strata have reviewed dozens of EIC proposals, and we keep seeing the same patterns all over again. That's why we are having this talk today. So we're going to review, as David mentioned, what are the most common reasons well startups fail, and eventually what can you do about it. Next slide, please. So before I even start, so the reasons that I'm going to show you now at the moment, they're based on dozens of feedback that we have received from the EIC. So they are real problems that real startups have encountered, and reviewers have said they are problems. So the first one, and I would say one of the biggest ones, novelty. So evaluators aren't looking for better. They're looking for things that are different. So you need to show a clear metric gap between what you do and what is the state of the art. And also critically, you need to justify why is now the right time to do it. And if you cannot explain also why your competitive window closes without this funding, then the evaluators will question the urgency. Urgency is a big problem that sometimes startups cannot express. Next slide, please. Then we go into commercialization. Now, this is the most common gap that we see from technically strong teams. So broad markets won't make the cut. You need a clear beachhead customer, a realistic price point that you can defend, and also a scale-up plan that doesn't rely on revenues outside of the scope of the project. Having vague metrics is quite dangerous here. Next slide, please. And then we go into the financials. So you must prove that without the EIC, the project will be difficult to take to the market. It's not that it's going to be impossible, no, but you will lose a first mover advantage, you will lose a share of the market. So now you need to show that. Also, the letters of interest, they need to show as much commitment as possible. They are becoming increasingly, much more important. Obviously, letters from clients are the most important letters that you will show because that shows traction and interest from the market. Next slide, please. Then we go into a team. Now, these type of companies that apply for the EIC Accelerator, they're technically brilliant, but technical profiles will not carry you to win an EIC Accelerator grant. Evaluators look for commercial and sometimes regulatory profiles, along with the science profiles. So they also look at the commitment, because we often see technical profiles that work at universities and only can commit 50%, 60% of their time. So the key people in the company need to have need to be all in the project. Otherwise, they will raise serious doubts. And one that one could say it's everyone knows, but sometimes it's surprising, is the gender balance. So the EIC and the European Union really look closely at gender imbalance in teams, and that can deduct points for your application. So we know that in some areas and in some industries, there is difficulty hiring technical people that sometimes are women, but then other areas, for example, more sales or other areas that you can balance that out. And the fifth point is, next slide, please, sorry, is the implementation. So the actual project itself. So your work packages need to have real milestones. So they're specific and they're measurable. Now, sometimes you have overlapping tasks, or sometimes the subcontracting costs are not really there. So we need to be careful about that. Also, you should have mitigation for all the risk that you put, and also risks that might come into view. So we don't just justify, we just list the risk. You need to plan how you will actually overcome them. And also something like, we will keep monitoring competitors. That doesn't really make the cut. So you need to have actual plans on how you're going to make those risks go away. And again, as we have seen, these are the main 5 areas that EIC Accelerator's proposals get rejected. So, and then I think my colleague David is going to talk. Yeah.
Thank you, Arcelia. Very useful. So yeah, and it's also interesting to know that this has been derived from many real evaluations. So it's real findings, from real projects. So now I will talk a little bit about how to overcome these challenges. Also, these recommendations come from many years of working with founders and startups. And the first recommendation that I will give is please involve your team from day 0. So the first mistake that we see that many companies make is treating the EIC application like it's going to be only the founders or the founder or the CEO involved. But actually, a successful proposal should reflect the collective intelligence of the whole company. So probably the CEO knows the general company strategy, but I'm sure the CTO can add much more details into the technical differentiation, or the commercial lead, for instance, is the one who can understand better the customer pain points, and obviously the finance, the CFO is going to be the one who understands better the scale economics or the unit economics. So if only one person is involved in the proposal, the application usually becomes unbalanced. So it's either too technical or too academic or too commercial without enough proof. The EIC evaluators are looking for consistency across technology, business, execution, and impact. And this consistency usually only happens when the entire team contributes from the beginning. So we know this is difficult sometimes to involve the important members of the team, but we think it's critical. And we have seen an extraordinary difference in the success rates when the key team members are involved in the process. Also, there's another benefit. When the whole team is involved early, everyone becomes aligned around the same vision, roadmap, and growth strategy. And this alignment becomes extremely important during the interview stage. So we have also seen important problems when the team is not aligned and they reach the interview stage. This is a very common reason for rejection, actually, at the interview stage. The second point, which is quite obvious, and it was also mentioned by Arcelia partly before, is about the technology readiness level. So the TRL that the EIC Accelerator is looking for is now a completed TRL 5. So this means that there is a prototype that validates the technology in a relevant environment. So the proposal needs to show clear evidence of testing results, performance data, manufacturing readiness, maybe regulatory progress. And even if possible, we think it's quite important to have some kind of early customer validation, especially taking into account that your proposal will be competing with many others. So adding early customer validation will be a plus, a very important point for you. And strong applications are ambitious, but grounded in proof. Then the third point that I want to mention is you have to supercharge your go-to-market plan or your go-to-market strategy. And this is where many technically brilliant companies fail, because they underestimate the level of detail needed in the go-to-market plan. And this is not only about performing research based on indirect sources, but also about having real insider knowledge about your market, the competition, and your customers. So for instance, you should be able to quantify the performance and cost advantages of your product over the main competitors or alternatives. And you should be able to detail your business model, but also the business model even of your clients. And I would say that you should be able also to explain your competitors' business model. So the more detail you can give on all this, the more credible your proposal will be. Also, you should be able to explain your scaling roadmap. And the go-to-market plan must already include traction. So letters of intent, pilot customers, strategic partnerships, or even, as I said before, early revenues. Because remember, the EIC evaluates companies a little bit like investors do. And they are looking for innovation, for scalability, not just innovation. Fourth point that I would like to mention is protect your IP. This fourth lesson is simple. If your innovation is valuable, you have to protect it. Many applications underestimate how important intellectual property is in the evaluation process. A strong IP tells evaluators that your innovation is differentiated, that is defensible, and that competitors cannot easily copy it. This doesn't mean that you need a massive patent portfolio, but you need a clear IP strategy. And an IP strategy could include many more things than patents, also trade secrets, software code, exclusive data sets, algorithms, manufacturing know-how, or regulatory barriers. So the key question evaluators ask is, what prevents a larger competitor from doing this faster? I mean, what happens if Google or Amazon or a giant company wants to enter this space? Will you have barriers that will impede them from doing this? If the answer is unclear, your application will become much weaker. And yeah, my final point is work with experts. Don't try to do everything alone. The EIC process is highly competitive and highly specialized. And I would say you wouldn't try to win Roland Garros without an experienced coach. And this is basically the Champions League, the European Champions League of Innovation. So even strong companies often struggle with the positioning, with the storytelling, or with the financial model, or the need for the EIC support. So yeah, at Strata, we will not only help you write an application, but we will help you also sharpen your strategy, clarify your differentiation, and present your company in the strongest possible way. And we will challenge your assumptions. I think that's important, that you work with someone who is going to challenge your assumptions. Yeah, ultimately, the goal is not only to win funding, it's also to be capable of scaling your company internationally. So that's all from my side, and I will hand over to Martin now.
Thanks. Yeah, so maybe a quick introduction for me. So I'm based in the UK. I'm a manager at Strata. My main focus is on clean tech and digital. So I focus on renewable energies, energy storage, AI, quantum computing, basically anything within that realm. I have a technical background, a PhD in chemistry, and also expertise in finance. And I've contributed now to more than 45 million, actually it's a bit more than that, but more than 45 million in public fundraising. Next slide, please. So at Strata, I think one of our unique selling points, one of our USPs is we're actually a relatively small company. We have about 30 people in total, and we work in very, very small teams. And that means we can be very focused on each individual application. So the process for us always starts with an initial assessment or a due diligence phase. And that means that we meet with you typically for about 45 minutes. We tell you about us, but the more important part of that meeting is that we ask you lots of questions and try to get an understanding of what you're doing. We will then ask for several documents under NDA, of course, and we do a very detailed due diligence internally. And we discuss your case with with our team internally, and we make sure that you're not just checking all of the boxes, because it's not a simple case of just checking off all of the some key metrics. It's a more holistic approach, because the way that EIC Accelerator is evaluated is a little bit changeable and unpredictable, and we're looking at this with an expert's eye. We're looking at this as people that have seen dozens of successful applications and also dozens of unsuccessful applications, and we know what kind of company wins and what kind of company doesn't win. And that's for us a really, really important part of the process. It's a huge time and cost burden for us, but it's incredibly important. We don't want to work with companies that can't win, and we don't want to waste your time putting in applications that are unlikely to be successful. Of course, the main part of our time together is the proposal preparation, and there you will work with a team. If you work with Strata, you'll work with a team of 3 people, and this is a system that we've used for several years now, and it's been really successful. One of those people would be your day-to-day contact, the lead consultant, and they at any one time they'll be working on very few applications. So they're really dedicated to your application, and they will challenge you a lot in strategy and finances, in the work program, and even things like IP strategy, whether or not you should be filing more patents, whether or not you should be fundraising more, what kind of investors you should be speaking to, what the go-to-market strategy looks like. We really push you on everything. And I think that's an important part of how we work, is we don't view this as a you don't assign us to write you an application and we disappear for 6 months and bring you an EIC grant. It's a collaboration all the way through, and the successful applications are the ones where we work together with you as clients, and we build out a strategy that makes the most sense for the EIC and for you as a business. Of course, one of the most important parts of the application process is your interviews, 2 rounds of interviews, one online expert meeting and one in-person interview in Brussels. And we follow quite a structured approach for interview training. We have we will either run it in person or online, depending on what makes sense for you at the time. And we have a very, very long list of questions that we've seen asked in past interviews that are real questions from real interviews, which we share with you, of course. And we bring in a much broader range of people from our wider team, and sometimes also investors from our network. And we also encourage you to bring advisors from your network, and we do several mock interviews, and we really put a lot of time into preparing you for that Brussels pitch. The other thing is that this is the European Commission. There is a lot of admin that goes on behind the scenes. Our aim in this process is to make sure that you only are involved in let's say, the parts that really matter, the content. And we challenge you and discuss with you all of the content in the application, while we take care of all the admin in the background. So we manage the EIC portal, we manage registering you as a company. We manage also, once you are successful, the grant agreement negotiation, and also the communication with your project officer once the grant is running. Next slide, please. So a lot of this I've already said, but we work in several work streams at once in parallel. Of course, the strategy and writing, but we also can provide expert support on things like financials, on IP. So Araceli she has a master's and an LLM in IP law. We contribute, or we can advise on budgeting. I already mentioned the interview training, and of course all of the admin support going on in the background. So we're kind of working on everything at once. I'm really conscious of the time. Next slide, please. And yeah, the last thing I wanted to say is only that you don't need to take our word for it. If you are interested in working with Strata, we have many success cases on our website, and they are only a small number of our success cases. Of course, we don't make all of them public. But if you wanted to speak to references or ask us about any of these, then of course, please do get in touch. And that's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Martin, very much for your presentation. Very useful. So I think we have 2-3 minutes for questions. Yeah, if you have any questions, anyone who is attending. I'm also leaving here. There is a QR on which you can run the funding readiness assessment if you want. Here you also have our email addresses if you want to contact us. So we are always happy to offer a free potential analysis. But yeah, if anyone wants to raise any question, please go ahead. No questions? Yeah, Regis. Okay. Yeah, Regis, please.
Good afternoon, David, Araceli, and Martin. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I have one question. I would be curious to know your position regarding AI. We see many more companies are relying on AI to write proposals, but I think it was clear in your presentation that the expertise you bring goes much more behind writing proposals. It's all the support for the budgeting, finance, strategy, and then the execution and the interview preparation. And we also see that the quality of the proposal with AI, they are becoming very lengthy, generic, so the discrimination is going down. So I'm curious to hear a bit your thoughts about and recommendation or tips about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very relevant question these days. So yeah, we know AI is impacting everything today. Obviously, AI helps preparing proposals. It can accelerate a lot the process, but it's true that it is not able to provide let's say a competitive proposal at this stage. No, so there are many angles that AI is not covering at the moment, like the financial strategy, like the interview preparation, like the team preparation. No, as I discussed, I personally think that involving the whole team and coordinating the process through a company focused perspective is very important. So this is something that AI is not doing. No, so my personal view is that AI is useful because it helps, especially in the first stages, no, of preparing a draft. I think it's quite helpful, but then as of today, it's not enough. No, AI to really win one of these applications.
And maybe just to add into that, because of AI, we're seeing more and more that the programs, the grants, are starting to do interview sessions. So basically, you could write things on paper, or even the AI just indent them, but eventually you will need to justify in person, in Q&As, what the project is about. And then that's where the handicap of actually using AI is going to show a lot. So it's better to do all the work, all the heavy lifting with someone that actually knows the process, to eventually have an easier process down the line, for example, the interviews.
I think there's also a key point that AI is really good because it's trained in all of the information on the internet, that you can't go on the internet and find successful or unsuccessful EIC Accelerator applications. And that's something that we as a company have seen many of. And I think that's a pretty important differentiator.
Thank you. Very clear.
Okay. So any Any more questions? No? Okay. So yeah, we will leave it there then. Thank you everyone for joining, and hope this has been useful. And I hope to see you soon again in the next talks. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.